Alright guys, welcome to Flavo Rihanna's MMA show. I'm your host, Flavo Rihanna, brought to you by Four Corner Sports. Alright guys, so UFC Vegas 46 is officially in the books. Last night, the UFC came back for the first time in a month absence. Alright, last card that they had was Derek Lewis versus Kyle Dawkins. Chris Dawkins. Kyle is the middleweight, Chris is the heavyweight, okay? But yeah, this is the first fight. This is the first card we had. It was Giga Chikadze versus Calvin Kattar. Calvin Kattar, we haven't seen him fight inside the octagon in just about a year, 364 days to be exact. Last time he fought was against Max Holloway, and Max Holloway ended up, beating the brakes off of him for 5 straight rounds. And Calvin Kattar wanted to take a year off, and him and the whole New England cartel crew led by Tyson Chartier, felt like it was the best move possible. First fight, he comes back. He's fighting, the surging, the hot, rising contender that is Giga Chikadze. A lot of fights were pulled out from this fight. We were supposed to have Joaquin Buckley versus Al Hassan. I can't pronounce the rest of his name, but that fight ended up getting moved, I believe, in February. Michel Pieta was supposed to fight, and he's fighting now for next week for UFC 270. I want to say maybe it was about like 7 or 8, maybe even more cancellations of fights or postponements. Just unfortunately, this is that time of the year. You're getting people that get sick, people that are getting injured, especially after a long layoff. But you know what? We had a 10-fight card. In my eyes, did it live up to being, the fight that, the card that we were expecting? You know what? I want to say it was decent. It was decent. It was honestly a good, 6.5, maybe top 7, if anything. But that's just being nice for a fight card, a fight night card. All right, but let's start it off with the main event. Giga Chikadze versus Calvin Kattar. A lot of implications on this featherweight main event because of the fact that just about a week ago, we had the announcement that Max Holloway was injured and Alexander Volkanovski needed an opponent. Well, unfortunately, the Korean Zombie, unfortunately for people like Giga Chikadze, Josh Emmett, who people put their names inside that hat to get called for an immediate title shot, the Korean Zombie is now the next person that's going to be fighting for a title. And Giga Chikadze, like I said, was one of those people that put his name inside that hat. And, he needed to, in my opinion, he needed to, put on a show in order to show the UFC that, hey, you know what, that he should have been, given the title shot if he had beaten Calvin Kattar. Well, unfortunately, I felt like, I don't know, there was maybe like a little bit of distractions. Also, I just felt like maybe Giga was overlooking Calvin Kattar, and whatever Giga was putting into his head, whether it was his manager, Ali Abdelaziz, was tweeting for him, I felt like none of that was going to stop the fact that Calvin Kattar just demolished and just dominated Giga Chikadze. I mean, it started off with round 1 where Giga, starting off explosive. I feel like with Giga Chikadze, you're going to have to, endure some of these body shot kicks that he gets. He ends up giving out to people. We saw what he ended up doing to Cub Swanson. We saw what he ended up doing to Edson Barbosa, all right? We saw what he ended up doing in his previous fights, and he's very explosive, especially in the first round. And Calvin Kattar was just, downloading data. He was knowing that, that if he survives his first round, he's going to have a better chance of being able to slow down the freight train that is Giga Chikadze. And what ends up happening in the first round, Kattar applying the pressure, making sure that Giga is not able to have his feet set in order to land explosive kicks. He's also, yes, he's enduring those body shots. Giga was utilizing a lot of his boxing too, but I think he was mainly trying to use more of his kickboxing, which he has a background in karate. With Kattar applying that pressure, Giga tries to go, I believe, for a high kick, if I'm not mistaken, and ends up slipping, mistimes his footing, and Kattar just pounces on Giga, goes for the takedown, and just wrestles him and just keeps him grounded for the remaining part of the first round. And at that point, I was like, all right, the fact that Calvin Kattar utilized his wrestling, because he does have wrestling background, he was a high school wrestler, all right. The fact that he utilized his wrestling just showed for Giga Chikadze, like, you know what, that it's not just about his boxing that I got to worry about. Now he implemented wrestling, okay. So that's another element right there that you have to worry about when you're stepping across somebody in the ring, that, you know, his primary is boxing, but he could utilize wrestling, okay. Sort of like what we ended up seeing with Cody Garbrandt and Rob Font. When Cody Garbrandt ended up utilizing his wrestling against Rob Font, because Rob Font was the boxer. Cody has, you know, good striking as well too. We saw Cody utilizing wrestling, and it just changed a little bit of that format of that game. But, you know, it wasn't that same result what ended up happening Garbrandt and Font. Getting back to Kattar and Chikadze, round 2, Kattar was able to apply pressure, and we ended up seeing as the public that Chikadze was starting to get drained out. I wasn't sure if it was the wrestling that was just of Kattar that was draining out Chikadze, or was it the fact that he used a lot of energy blasting kicks, utilizing haymakers on Kattar, that, you know what, that he may have blown off his gas tank early in the first round. And Kattar was just landing those nasty elbows, similar to how Leon Edwards uses his elbows. He was blasting elbows. He was taking a punch to get closer to closing in the pocket, and just, you know, landing combinations. Chikadze was trying to set his feet to, you know, land explosive punches, land explosive kicks, but with the fact that Kattar was just pressing him, making him backpedal, making him go against the wall, it just allowed for, you know, Kattar and Kattar's crew, the New England Cartel, to utilize their game plan and to be able to stop the freight train that is Giga Chikadze. Going from rounds 2, 3, and 4, it was clear indication that we ended up seeing, you know, Calvin Kattar 10-9 for each one of those rounds. And then in round 5, I believe the numbers ended up showing that Calvin Kattar landed over 75 significant strikes to Giga Chikadze. I actually scored that as a 10-8 round for Calvin Kattar. Overall, Calvin Kattar, you know, stops Giga Chikadze, hands Giga Chikadze his first loss in the UFC. He is now officially 7-1 in the UFC. That's his third overall loss in MMA. Calvin Kattar, you know, bounces back after a year-long layoff after receiving the butt whipping that he ended up getting from Max Holloway. He ended up giving that same butt whipping to Giga Chikadze, and Calvin Kattar moves on. He is the winner. What's next for Calvin Kattar, in my opinion? Well, I believe he is 2 fights away. I think the fight that makes sense is a fight between him and Josh Emmett. I think him and Josh Emmett makes a lot more sense right now because of the fact that Josh Emmett, you know, he knows that, you know, the time is ticking for him to get a title shot, and how deep and how stacked the featherweight division is. I think that whoever wins, you know, I believe that that's the best fight to be made set right now. I don't think Kattar, you know, is going to fight Ortega. Reason being, I think Ortega's going to try to take some time. He also received, you know, a whipping, but that was back in September, and we saw what ended up happening the last time he ended up receiving a whipping like that. He took a year off. So I don't think Ortega's going to be fighting anytime soon, in my opinion. I think he's going to take some time off. I think Kattar versus Josh Emmett. Emmett ended up fighting in December. Kattar just fought yesterday. I think they can make something like that happen, give or take around maybe like May or June. And, you know, you could push that fight forward. That could possibly be for a title eliminator. If not, that could just be one fight away for being a number 1 contender fight. What's next for Giga Chikadze? Well, Giga Chikadze was ranked number 8 in the featherweight division. I think that you can place him anywhere right now. You don't have to make him fight somebody inside the top 6. It just shows that I think he's not clearly ready yet to fight higher level competition. You know, we saw what he ended up doing in Cub Swanson and Edson Barbosa. I think that you can put him into a fight with somebody like a Shane Burgos. Shane Burgos has been very game as of late. He ended up defeating Billy Quarantillo back in November. I think that's a fight that they could both have. I think that Shane Burgos, you know, he absorbs a lot of damage in his fights. I think that he can be ready, give or take about July, maybe August. I would say maybe as early as July. And same thing with Chikadze. Chikadze doesn't want to stay on the bench for too long. He has spoken in previous interviews that he, in the past, has fought 5 times in karate, so he doesn't like to take long breaks. I think July might make the most sense for him, especially after the beating that he ended up receiving from Calvin Kattar, where he was, busted wide open, swollen eyes, bleeding like a crimson mass, like the good old JR ended up saying back in the day. I think Chikadze might end up returning maybe as early as July, which is how much of a beating that he ended up taking from Calvin Kattar. Co-main event, guys, it wasn't really a co-main event in my eyes. It was more of like the fight right before the main event. It was Jake Collier versus what's it called? Chase Sherman. Chase Sherman, the Vanilla Gorilla, versus Jake Collier, the prototype. It's just a heavyweight fight in my opinion. It was just a fight that you just put on the card. To me, it could have been put on the prelims, but how depleted the card was, I understand why they ended up putting it on the co-main event. You put something like that on the co-main event, you're hoping that it's a first round finish, and it was a first round finish for Jay Collier. He ends up hurting Chase Sherman, puts him down to the ground, mauls him. Sherman tries to defend himself by going on all fours, giving up his back, and then Collier ends up going for the rear naked chokehold, forcing Sherman to tap out, and there you go. That's what was the co-main event. We had Katlyn Chookagian versus Jennifer Maia, two females that ended up getting beaten up by Valentina Shevchenko. These both ladies, in my opinion, whoever was going to win was not going to get a title shot, just because they recently had just lost to Valentina just about a little bit over 18 months to 24 months since they last fought. Katlyn Chookagian just became the first fighter, I believe, let alone female, to go 10 wins, and all 10 wins in her first 10 wins in the UFC become decisions. So she has never gotten a finish in her UFC career, never got a submission, never got a knockout, so she makes UFC history. 10 wins, 10 decisions. Congratulations to Katlyn Chookagian. What's next for these both ladies? Well, Chookagian is on the last fight of her deal. I don't know if she gets re-signed or not. I mean, she really doesn't push the needle, in my opinion. She has been a glorified gatekeeper for the top 5. So she's been knocking off contenders. She's been knocking off people that are just trying to, reacclimate themselves back into a title picture. And she's just a stop block. If you get past her, you can get into the title. That's what happened with Jessica Andrade. First fight at flyweight, what she ends up doing, hits Chookagian right in the liver, drops her with a body shot, and then gets the title shot against Valentina. And then we all know what ended up happening at UFC 261. Valentina ends up getting a TKO victory over Jessica Andrade. I believe it was in the second or third round, and there you go. There you have it. What next for Jennifer Maia? Well, I believe I ended up putting down that Maia. She ends up fighting Andrea Lee. I think if Katlyn Chookagian does get re-signed, I believe the fight to make for her is Talia Santos. And then we also had Brandon Royval versus Rodrigo Bontorin. Good fight at the flyweight division. Brandon Royval is one of the more exciting fighters that we have in the flyweight division. I gave it to Brandon Royval 29-28. Exciting fight. Royval was going for the finish. There was a very controversial moment, I believe, in the second round where Royval was going for the armbar, and it looked like Bontorin ended up tapping. It was just a tap like this, like that, but it wasn't more like this. It was more like, and it looked like he second guessed himself as to whether or not he wanted to tap out or not. But I just viewed it as like, all right, he maybe try to get a grip of the arm, and it just looked like he was just trying to tap, but he didn't. But I'm glad overall the right person won. Royval wins. Royval now, snaps that losing streak that he ended up having. I think the only fight to make is if Askar Askarov loses to Kai Kara France, you make that fight happen against Brandon Royval. I know Brandon Royval has had a very tough, murderous row. He's fought Kai Kara France, Tim Elliott, Brandon Moreno, who is the current champion. He's fought Alexander Pantoja. I think the only fight to make at this point is Askar Askarov. He's not going to fight back, okay? I know he's going to try to creep back at a title shot, but that's the fight to make in my opinion. And for Rodrigo Bonsarin, I mean, I believe he was ranked 8 in the world in the flyweight division. I think the fight to make for him is one Manel Cap. That would be an exciting matchup. You could put that as a prelim on a pay-per-view card right there, and you're gonna have a whole bunch of eyeballs tuning in for a fight like that. But yeah, guys, that covers it for the main card. I know we had Bill Algeo, Senor Perfecto, getting a victory, a decision victory over Tate, but there's not much to talk about that card. I'm sorry about that fight, but yeah, I mean, decent card for UFC Vegas 46. You know, we were able to finally get some fights after a month long absence. Yes, we were able to celebrate the holidays with our families and loved ones and stuff like that. But it's good. It's finally great to see some UFC fights back on our television screens. But yeah, guys, next week we got Francis Ngannou versus Cyril Gane. Francis Ngannou is going to try to defend his title against his former teammate, at the MMA Factory in Paris, against one Cyril Gane. And there's a lot of storyline behind that fight. I'm surprised the UFC hasn't really cut a good promo for that card. There's so much to really talk about. I'm surprised that it's not really getting pushed like that. Plus, we also have a trilogy fight between the flyweight champ and the flyweight number one contender, Brandon Moreno, the baby assassin. He's supposed to get into the octagon against his arch foe, his arch rival, Davison Figueiredo, for the trilogy fight. A lot's at stake right now. This could be possibly Davison Figueiredo's last fight at flyweight if he's to lose. He's already spoken about the fact that it's already a tough weight cut for him to make 125. I believe if he loses, he goes up to 135. Brandon Moreno, there's a lot at stake for him too, because if he is to lose, does the UFC make a 4-fight, in this great, rivalry that they have at flyweight? It definitely will hold up the division. But you know what? With the way that the division is holding up right now, it does make sense that to make a 4-fight if Brandon Moreno does lose. I know the UFC is not really opposed to making a 4-fight in rivalries, but you might need to make an exception for this one. But yeah, guys, there's a lot at stake right now. The Mexican firstborn champ is set to make his first title defense. Same thing with Francis Ngannou. He's set to make his first title defense. Does Francis Ngannou win? And if he wins, does he end up re-signing with the UFC? Or does he hold on to the title and possibly get stripped by Dana White? Until then, guys, I am Flav Oriana. Thank you for tuning into Flav Oriana's MMA show. Please hit that like and subscribe channel. That really helps out the channel. And I'll see you guys next time. Peace, guys, and have a good one. See ya.